I'm so excited you're joining us today as we are going to be talking about 10 ways to take learning outside at the beach. Hey there, Mama. I'm Lauren Brainerd, and this is Teach Your Littles at Home. I'm so excited you have tuned in as I share fun and hands-on activities you can use right away to help you play and learn with your little ones. So let's dive right into today's episode so you can make more memories than you ever dreamed of. One thing I love about going to the beach is all the opportunities for learning that we can do as we're just playing together. So the first thing I want to talk about today is how you can learn so many different math concepts just through building sandcastles. We can learn how to count. We can learn about writing, patterns, colors. There's so many different things we can do through sandcastles. So I want you to start by grabbing a bucket and a shovel. And as your kids begin to fill that bucket, you're going to start working on counting. How many scoops does it take to fill that bucket? Take a moment and ask your kids what they think. How many scoops do you think it'll take? This is always a fun one, especially with our little ones, because they don't quite have the concept of large numbers yet. So you'll hear 1 million, 2, 50,000, numbers they've heard that they think just sound really cool, and they're going to start throwing them out at you. Then have them grab the shovel and start filling it up. And as they're filling, have them count. Have them count as high as they can. And when they get to the point that they don't know the next number, just start counting with them. Then talk about, were they right? Were there 1 million scoops? Were there 10? Whatever it is. And then talk about how many there actually were. This type of rote counting where you're scooping it in and filling it up is great for them just to get exposure and hearing the numbers. Then I want you to actually build that sandcastle. Make sure you've mixed a little bit of water with your sand so it holds together. And then maybe make 10 sandcastles all together. Put them in a line, follow the same process where they're counting and scooping until you have 10. Then I want you to ask them how many sandcastles they made. Have them go through and count all the sandcastles. Then take your hand and just flatten out some sand, have your child do the same, and let's write the number they counted. If your child knows how to write numbers, by all means, have them do this on their own. But if they're not quite there yet, then what you're going to do is write the number in the sand using your finger, and then have them just take their finger and trace the number. Depending on the age of your child, if they're over the age of 3, I would say write the number in front of each sandcastle and have them go through and trace 1, 2, 3, and so on. If your child is 2 years old and you think they'd have fun with this, even better, by all means. The more exposure they get to tracing and writing from an early age, the better. But we want this to be through fun ways at this age because they're not quite ready to write with a pencil. We're still working on building those fine motor skills. And if we asked our child to take a pencil at the age of 2 or 3 and write a number, it's going to be difficult. They just don't have, or I should say most kids just don't have the hand strength to do this yet. So finding ways to build that fine motor practice in their hands and making writing fun so that they can make the connection between this is a number, this is the number, this is what it's called, this is what I'm hearing, this is what it looks like, are all great at this age. In a sense, they're learning those numbers similar to the way they would be learning a shape at a young age. All right, so back to our sandcastles. We've used our sandcastles to work on counting and work on number names and writing numbers. The next thing you can do is work on patterns. So I want you to have your kids go collect some objects at the beach. Give them a little bucket. If you did do this 10 sandcastles, then you're going to want them to find 2 sets of 5 objects. So it could be 5 seashells and 5 rocks, 5 sticks, whatever you see around you. Just pick 2 types of things. Then you're going to work on a pattern in those sandcastles. So on the top of every sandcastle, I want you to have them make what we call an A-B pattern. So A would be one type of object and B would be the next. And you're going to go A, B, and so on. So seashell, rock, and have them make that pattern. After they make the pattern, ask your kids, what pattern did you make? And have them say seashell, rock, or whatever object you use. And then the last thing you can do with these sandcastles is talk about the different colors that they see. You can even go a step further and talk about why they think the objects are the color that they are. For example, if a seashell is the same color as the sand, you can talk about how that seashell blends in with the sand. Maybe it's for camouflage. Teach them the word camouflage. You want to start exposing your children to higher level vocabulary any opportunity that you get, because at this age, our kids are sponges. They can handle these words, they can retain them, and you will even start to hear them using them in their everyday speech if they're given the opportunity. All right, let's dive into our second activity that we can take to the beach. The second one I love is doing a scavenger hunt. So I have a free printable on my blog, and I'll link that in the show notes so that you can download this and take it with you. You're going to give your kids a piece of paper that's going to have 9 squares on it. And on each square is a picture of something that you should be able to find at pretty much any beach that you go to. Give your kids either a crayon or a sticker sheet, and you're going to go around and you're going to find all these objects. As they find the objects, have them pick them up and put them in a bucket. After they place it in their bucket, you'll either stick a sticker on top of the square so they remember they did it, or just have them color the box or make an X, however you want to go about that. They're going to be looking for seashells, rocks, water, sand, all things that are really pretty common at the beach. I've included leaves and some other objects that might be a little harder to spot as well, but you can give it your best effort. The purpose of this scavenger hunt is basically to create a beach scene in the bucket. So they're going to have all these different objects that they found at the beach, and then you can sit down and they can dig their hands into their bucket and feel all of the different textures and types of things that they can find at the beach. The third activity we're going to do is turn that bucket of the beach into a sensory bottle. So you're also going to want to bring a plastic water bottle with you. One preferably that has like a wider top on the top. You can find these at the grocery store usually. I wouldn't recommend the really tiny mouth because it's harder to fit things like seashells and rocks in them. But if you can find a plastic bottle that has a larger mouth, that'll make this a lot easier for you to put together. And you're just going to fill it up with all the different things. You're going to add some sand, a seashell, some seaweed, a rock, and then you're going to fill it up with the ocean water. You will want to fill the bottle all the way to the top with water. And that way, when the lid is screwed on tight and they're turning their bottle upside down, all the sand and seashells and things will fall, but they won't splash down to the bottom due to all the extra air in the bottle. The fourth activity we're going to do is bringing some art to the beach. So remember when I mentioned you're going to want to bring an empty tray with you. I love the big plastic craft trays you can get that only have about an inch lip on the sides so that they're nice and flat and they can just sit right on the sand. Get a bucket, fill it up with really wet sand, add a little bit of extra water so that it almost is the consistency of like a paint they could use. Then your kids are going to make a wet sand painting. They're going to dip their fingers into the bucket, grab some wet sand, and start to drop it on their tray. Ask them what they see at the beach. They're going to see the waves hitting the sand. Have them paint this with their wet sand in their tray. It's a great way to take a moment and explore their sense of sight and see what kind of interpretation of what they're seeing that they can produce on this tray in front of them. The fifth thing I love to do at the beach is turn the area in front of us in the sand into a giant sensory bin. This is a great way to do a sand sensory bin if you have kids who aren't quite ready to keep their materials like sand in a bin at home because it's just too messy, but it's a great way they can get that sensory experience and still work on learning. We're at the beach. This is a life-size sensory bin. So make a giant circle around you. Then I want you to take the 26 alphabet cards that you're going to bring with you, and you're going to stick those all around the circle. You can go on the outside edge, inside the middle, just spread them out. Then have your kids go find one card at a time. Have them bring the card to you, say the name of the letter, and have them repeat it. If they're at a point where they know most of their letters, have them tell you the letter. Then go find the next one. If your children are more of a pre-K age, after they find all the letters, you can have them work on ordering those letters from A to Z. They will most likely need some help with this, so be ready to get down in the sand and help them put those letters in order. You can even start to work on sounds if your kids are getting close to kindergarten, or if they're just ready for this, and have them look around the beach and tell you things they see that begin with each letter. So, for example, the letter S makes the S sound. Ask them, do you see anything here at the beach that begins with S? Seashells, sand. Probably not going to see any snakes at the beach, but they may draw one in the sand. Kids get creative with these activities. You can do the same thing with number cards, counting cards, shape cards, whatever it is that you want your kids working on. You could even combine a little bit of everything. If there's 3 letters, 3 numbers, and 3 shapes you're focusing on right now, put those 9 cards out in the sand. Number 6, let's make a journal. So you're going to grab that liquid glue that you brought with you, and you're going to begin on page 1, and you're going to do either a letter or number. Draw it with the liquid glue. Then have your kids cover it with sand, shake it off, and let it dry. This is a fun way to make a book that you can take home to practice, but you are going to have to factor in that those pages are going to need to dry, so you might want to just do a couple each time you go. Open up to a spread and maybe just focus on 2 letters a day. Do the letter A and the letter B. Create it, let it dry, bring it back next time to do 2 more letters. Another way you can use that paper book is to create an art journal. You could even go out and buy like a watercolor pad, but I've found that these little books work great because it's things that I already have on hand. Bring some watercolor paints or crayons and have your kids sit and look around the beach and draw or paint what they see. Just like we did with our wet sand painting, this is such a fun way to see what their interpretation is of what is around them. Number 7, we're going to work on writing names today. So you're going to start by having your kids flatten out a big area of sand to create a nice flat surface to write on. Then, using your finger or a stick, I want you to write their name in the sand. You're going to start by counting the letters in their name. So if their name is Emily, you'll count 5 letters. Then I want you to go through and have your child trace each letter in their name. You can say the name of each letter as you go, but make sure that they are going through the motions of tracing. And as they're tracing each letter, I want you to start at the top of the letter and go down. So if you picture a capital E, you're going to start at the top of the E, make a straight line down, and then draw 3 straight lines across. I have some printable preschool letter worksheets that show you the way that you should be forming each letter. So I'll link those in the show notes in case you want a little extra practice with how to form letters before you do this with your child. After they've had a chance to trace their name, then have them write their own name right below. They have the letters above to use as a guide, and then they can work on writing their own name with their finger or with a stick, a seashell, whatever they want to use to write their name with. Number 8. This is a really fun one. Kids love to explore the ocean. You hear so many questions about what's under the sea. You know, a lot of kids have seen movies that show you things under the sea. So one thing I love to do is find either a rock beach or a tide pool area. And you're going to use this so that your kids can catch a glimpse of what is actually in the ocean. I love to show a short little clip, usually on my phone since we're already at the beach, of the ocean, just so that they can see the fish and the coral and the water and things like that. Then we're going to go out to that tide pool or rock beach and we're going to look for evidence of the life under the sea. Have your kids look underneath rocks. What do they see? Bring a net and a bucket so that if they see any little crabs or things like that, they can catch them with a net so they don't hurt their little fingers and put in a bucket of water. Do you see any wet sand or muddy areas where a seashell or a crab shell or anything like that has been imprinted into that mud? If it's dried, it's really fun to try to cut around it and hold it in their hands and take a really close look at that fossilized element. Look for coral, look for barnacles, look for starfish, whatever there might be in that area that will show evidence of this life under the sea. If you're in an area where there's some sort of crevice where water's coming in and out, you might even get lucky and see a few fish. But give your kids lots of time to just look and explore and see what they see around them. Number 9, let's talk for a minute about what visitors our kids see at the beach. Obviously, you're going to see people. People are visitors at the beach. But who else comes to visit the beach? If you look far out into the ocean, you might see evidence of some sea life. You might see water spraying up from possibly a dolphin, starfish, crabs. Look for seagulls, pigeons. There's so many animals that you see when you're at the beach that when we stop for a minute and we look for this evidence, there's so much to see. Another way I love to bring science in is to observe the tides. How fast is the water coming in? How far out is it going? Have your kids stand right where the water meets the shore. See as the water goes back out if it always comes back to the same place, or if sometimes it doesn't quite reach them, or sometimes it goes past them. Another fun activity you can do at the beach is a gross motor game. And this is a way to get your children exploring different types of movements with their bodies. I have printable cards for this game included in my summer preschool unit, so I'll link that in the show notes. But what it is you're going to take about 12 different cards, and on each card, you're going to write an action that you want your kids to do at the beach. Walk like a crab, swim like a dolphin, fly like a seagull. Find all the different types of animal visitors who come to the beach, stick these in a paper bag, and have your kids reach in one at a time and pull out a card. Then they're going to perform this action on the beach. And get ready for giggles. Never fails when they lay down in the sand and they start flip-flopping like a dolphin. It's Giggle City in our house. And last but not least, I can't end an episode about the beach without mentioning the importance of beginning your day talking about safety. Take a moment when you get to the beach and remind your kids, even if you've said it 100 times, that they should never go out in the water without you. Always stay close to mom. Make sure I can see you. One thing I really love to do with my kids is I'll find a spot on the beach that's very central to where we're sitting, such as a lifeguard tower, a tree, something like that. And I always tell them to play kind of in front of that area so that if for some reason we were ever separated, we have that place to meet again. And it's always been great as my son's starting to get a little bit older and he goes out and he starts to play in the water. I'm watching him, but it's easy to kind of get carried by that tide a few feet down. And then I'll see him look up, see that lifeguard tower and come running back in front of it so that he always stays right where we are. The beach is fun, and finding ways to learn outdoors with your kids is so rewarding because we are learning through play. We're making the memories we want to make, we're going out on outdoor adventures, and we're finding ways to just add the learning moments we want into the play activities we're already doing. I hope I've inspired you to take learning outside to the beach. If you don't have a beach near you, remember, go to a lake, a river. You can even go to the park. But instead of looking for seashells and sand, look for dirt and rocks, whatever you have around you. But take advantage of this time where our kids are little and find ways to learn outside to make reinforcing all the academic concepts that we are doing at home really fun and meaningful in an outdoor learning way. If you have any other ideas for learning moments with your kids that you could take to the beach, I would love for you to join my Facebook community, Teach Your Littles at Home. I have a link in the show notes. Come on into the group, share a photo of something you're doing outside, share the activities that you are feeling inspired to do, and come connect with a group of mamas who are all doing the same things with their kids as we try to create learning moments through play. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Teach Your Littles at Home. I hope you are feeling so inspired to create a new activity to do right away with your little ones.
If you like listening to my mommy, will you please leave her a review?
Before you head off to plan the next activity, would you mind leaving me a quick review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening from? This is the only way for me to know if you're finding my tips, activities, and advice helpful, and I get so excited reading each and every review. I hope this episode has left you feeling empowered to try something new with your kids this week. And if so, would you please hit the share button and share this episode with another one of your mama friends who also wants to create activities with her little ones. I can't wait to share even more fun activities with you on our next episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day playing and making memories with your little ones.